happened to Young Thug's tattoos? What happened to them? Look, he has a chest full of tattoos, a face full of tattoos, and his arms were full of tattoos.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr.
Pooh Shiesty's story was never just about one arrest, one headline, or one viral mugshot. It was about how fast a young Memphis rapper can go from being the hottest new voice in the streets to becoming the center of federal paperwork, label pressure, and public speculation. His real name is Lontrell Williams Jr. He came out of Memphis with a voice that felt raw, cold, and instantly recognizable. When Back in Blood with Lil Durk exploded, it did more than give him a hit record. It turned him into one of the faces of a new street rap wave. The record became a major commercial milestone for Pooh Shiesty and 1017 Global's The Atlantic, with RIAA certification attached to the song's success, but the same energy that made Pooh Shiesty feel authentic to fans also placed every move he made under a microscope. By 2021, he had the kind of momentum artists dream about. Gucci Mane's new 1017 behind him, a breakout mixtape, major features, and a fan base that treated him like Memphis's next superstar. Music critics were already framing him as one of the strongest new artists on Gucci Mane's roster. Then the legal record caught up with the rap image. According to the Department of Justice, Pooh Shiesty pleaded guilty in January 2022 to a federal conspiracy charge tied to firearms, violence, and drug trafficking. The government connected that plea to multiple incidents, including the October 2020 Bay Harbor Islands case in Florida. So before the rumors, before the internet theories, before people started trying to turn his prison story into something bigger than the documents, the confirmed truth was already serious. Pooh Shiesty was a rising rap star whose career got interrupted at the exact moment he was becoming too big to ignore.
Pooh Shiesty was part of the group that ended up in this parking lot that October afternoon where the shots flew, and it happened right across the street from the police department and town hall here in Bay Harbor Islands, and days before an arrest.
The town of Bay Harbor Islands says you're wanted for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon.
He's also charged with armed robbery. Bay Harbor police names one other for aggravated battery in their affidavit, saying the two left the state in a private jet. Police also using these Instagram photos, showing Shiesty with an assault-style rifle and cash as part of their case.
Once the case moved from local headlines into federal court, the story changed completely. This was no longer just a Florida police report or a rap world controversy. It became a federal case with real prison time attached. The key moment was the plea. Pooh Shiesty admitted to one federal conspiracy count while other heavier charges were dropped as part of the legal process. That plea reshaped the entire future of his career. Instead of being on stage, doing interviews, and building off the success of Back in Blood, he was now moving through the federal system, where every date, every transfer, every release window, and every violation can change the whole timeline. That is why this story has to be followed through documents, not just rumors. Because in Pooh Shiesty's case, the paperwork has always mattered more than the noise.
Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida. In October of 2020, prosecutors say that Williams and another man shot 2 men after arranging to buy marijuana and high-end sneakers from them. Then in May of last year, Williams was accused of shooting a security guard in the leg at a Miami strip club. Now, prosecutors say he could get up to 20 years in prison, but attorneys from both sides are reportedly seeking a shorter sentence to roughly 8 years in prison.
Pooh Shiesty's federal sentence became the turning point. He had gone from being one of the most promising new rappers in the country to being locked into a federal timeline that fans watched almost like a countdown clock. Every update mattered, every photo from custody mattered, every rumored release date mattered, and because he was still young, still famous, and still connected to one of rap's most visible labels, people never stopped treating his comeback like it was inevitable. But the official record shows why the comeback was complicated from the start. The Department of Justice said Pooh Shiesty's 2022 guilty plea involved a conspiracy to possess firearms in furtherance of crimes of violence and drug trafficking. The government described 3 incidents connected to that plea: a July 2020 shooting-related incident in Memphis, the October 2020 Bay Harbor Islands meeting involving marijuana, codeine, sneakers, firearms, and injured victims, and a May 2021 Miami strip club assault allegation. That is the part fans sometimes skip over. The music made Pooh Shiesty feel larger than life, but the court system reduced everything to dates, counts, evidence, and conditions. And once a rapper enters that world, the story is no longer controlled by the label, the streets, or the blogs. It is controlled by judges, prosecutors, probation officers, detention hearings, and court filings. After serving time, Pooh Shiesty's name returned to the headlines again, but not just because of music. In 2026, federal prosecutors in the Northern District of Texas announced a new case involving Pooh Shiesty, Big 30, his father, and others. According to the DOJ, the case came from an alleged January 10th meeting at a Dallas music studio where 3 music industry professionals had traveled for what was supposed to be a business discussion. Prosecutors alleged that Pooh Shiesty arranged the meeting to talk about his recording contract, then he and others carried out a coordinated armed takeover. The DOJ also said court records showed he was on home confinement for his prior firearms conspiracy conviction at the time. That detail matters. Home confinement is supposed to be the bridge between custody and freedom. It is supposed to be the stage where an artist rebuilds quietly, follows conditions, reconnects with family, and prepares for a return. But prosecutors allege the opposite happened, that during a contract dispute involving Gucci Mane's 1017 Records, violence entered the picture. The allegations are serious, but they are still allegations. Pooh Shiesty has pleaded not guilty to the new federal charges, and the case has not been decided by a jury. Kara reported that Williams pleaded not guilty in May 2026 and remained in federal custody at the Kaufman County Jail while the case moved forward. His attorney also questioned parts of the government's evidence, including whether investigators had the alleged contract or the alleged recording connected to the incident. That is where the real drama lives, not in unverified claims about secret prison messages, but in the gap between what prosecutors say happened and what the defense says has not been proven. According to CBS Texas, Pooh Shiesty is scheduled to stand trial in federal court in Dallas on July 6, 2026, with a final pre-trial conference scheduled for July 1st. CBS also reported that prosecutors claim the evidence includes surveillance video, cell phone data, and social media posts, and that if convicted as charged, each defendant could face up to life in federal prison. That is a completely different level of pressure. This is not just about whether Pooh Shiesty can release another hit. It is about whether he can survive another federal case while his public image, his label relationships, and his freedom are all being questioned at the same time. The comeback story that fans were waiting for suddenly became a courtroom story. The celebration turned into another countdown, not to a release date, but to trial, and the label angle makes it even heavier. Pooh Shiesty was not accused of robbing a random stranger in a random room. Prosecutors say the alleged confrontation centered around a recording contract and involved people connected to the same music world that helped make him famous. Courthouse News reported that federal prosecutors claimed Gucci Mane, legally Radrick Davis, was referred to by initials in the indictment, and that the alleged meeting was tied to Pooh Shiesty's effort to get released from his contract. That changes the emotional weight of the story. Because in hip-hop, label relationships are never just paperwork. They are loyalty, money, power, pride, image, and control. When a young artist signs to an older legend, fans see opportunity. But behind closed doors, there can be pressure over masters, advances, obligations, image, rollout control, and who gets to decide when an artist is free. None of that proves the government's allegations. But it explains why the case grabbed so much attention. It looked like a rap business dispute had been dragged into the federal criminal system, and that is why Pooh Shiesty's story feels bigger than one rapper. It sits right where modern hip-hop keeps colliding with the courts. Young artists turning real street reputations into marketable brands, labels profiting from danger, fans rewarding authenticity, and prosecutors later using that same image to argue risk, motive, and pattern. The internet wants a simple villain. The courtroom does not work that way. The courtroom wants evidence, so the question is not just what happened in that Dallas studio. The bigger question is, how did a rapper who had already survived one federal sentence end up back in a position where prosecutors could argue he was too dangerous to release? That is the part that makes this story so tense. Pooh Shiesty had already seen how fast everything could be taken away. He had already lost years during the hottest stretch of his career. He had already watched his name become a warning in rap conversations about street fame and federal consequences, and now, instead of returning cleanly to the music, he is facing a case that could define the rest of his life.
What happened to Young Thug's tattoos? What happened to them? Look, he has a chest full of tattoos, a face full of tattoos, and his arms were full of tattoos. So my next question is, who's this? Who is this guy right here? Because all his tattoos are gone. Shut up! They told me to stop doing things like this, guys. But I told them why, because this is for entertainment purposes only. We just playing around here, guys. People want to see this type of stuff. Did you see how he was looking at the crowd? He was moving funny. He wasn't moving like the Young Thug I know. Where's his jewelry at? Since when he performs with no jewelry? What is going on with Young Thug, guys? Look, arm full of tattoos. Now, this is Young Thug right here. Now, I don't know if they swapped him out before he came out. Shut up! I don't know what happened. You know why? Because I wasn't there. I was in my house relaxing. People are saying the Young Thug that we know, he's gone. He's gone. Atlanta? Go find him. Because this is the real Young Thug. Look at the neck tattoos, the face tattoos, the arm tattoos. Where are the tattoos? And why is he smiling so much? What's so funny, dogs? Shut up! I don't know who this guy is.
Clips like the Young Thug tattoo conspiracy show how fans react when a rapper comes home different, looks different, moves different, or appears under pressure. The internet fills every gap with a theory. Sometimes those theories are jokes. Sometimes they become full-blown narratives. But underneath all of that is something real. Fans do not trust what they are being shown. That same distrust follows Pooh Shiesty. When a rapper disappears into custody and comes back under federal supervision, people start reading every detail. A photo becomes evidence. A caption becomes a clue. A silence becomes a warning. A contract dispute becomes a conspiracy. But if we are telling this story responsibly, we have to separate internet emotion from public record. The public record says Pooh Shiesty rose through Gucci Mane's 1017 system, built a major hit, served time from a federal firearms conspiracy case, and then became a defendant in a new federal case tied to an alleged Dallas studio confrontation. The public record also says he has pleaded not guilty. That is already dramatic enough. The real story does not need clone talk or supernatural theories. The real story is about what happens when young rap stars become valuable, controversial, legally vulnerable, and trapped between the streets, the business, and the courts. Young Thug's situation created one kind of public paranoia. Pooh Shiesty's creates another. Fans are not just asking if he is free. They are asking who controls the comeback, who controls the contract, and whether the same image that made him famous is now being used to keep him locked inside a courtroom battle.
We live in a country where a man could say, now I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. Now I'm a woman. And we will call you by your name as a woman. But that doesn't mean that a doctor ain't gonna call you until you need a prostate examination. You can wear a sundress when you go. Yeah. You're still getting the same thing I'm getting. So happy anniversary, I guess. You can say you're a thing and you're that. Yeah. You like it, and you have to like. For now, I'm a white man trapped in this black man's body. Yeah. My name is Chad. Yeah. Now that ain't gonna work good for the police. Wait, I'm a white man. Well, both of y'all get out. But the first. Yeah.
This is where the story turns from internet commentary back to documented reality. A viral clip can make people laugh, speculate, or argue. But a federal indictment is different. A detention order is different. A trial date is different. Those are the receipts that matter now. So as the noise gets louder, keep your eyes on the official timeline, the charges, the plea, the custody status, the pre-trial conference, and the July 2026 trial date. That is where Pooh Shiesty's future will be decided.
I had seen that word transgender was Baphomet, the transgender. And so I knew that in the ritual of Baphomet, the transgender, to show allegiance to him, you had to kiss his ass ring. Really? And it said both of those things. So I knew that both of those things would become popular in the future. And that somehow calling people the GOAT would be normalized over the sheep being always the most popular reference.
So let's bring the whole story back to what can actually be verified. Pooh Shiesty came out of Memphis with one of the strongest street rap waves of the early 2020s. Back in Blood made him impossible to ignore. Gucci Mane's 1017 gave him a platform. Atlantic Distribution gave the music reach. The streets gave him credibility. And the fans gave him momentum. Then, the federal system gave him a number. In 2022, Pooh Shiesty pleaded guilty in the Southern District of Florida to a firearms conspiracy charge connected to violent and drug trafficking crimes. The DOJ's own release laid out the government's version of the conduct, including the Bay Harbor Islands incident that had already been shown in news clips. After that, every conversation around Pooh Shiesty changed. He was no longer just a rapper with a hit record. He was an artist trying to carry a career through prison time, supervised release, and public expectation. Fans waited for the comeback because rap loves a comeback story, but the comeback did not arrive clean. By 2026, federal prosecutors in Texas were telling a new story, that Pooh Shiesty and others allegedly turned a contract dispute into a violent studio confrontation. The DOJ alleged that he arranged a Dallas meeting, produced an AK-style pistol, forced a victim to sign release paperwork, and that other defendants displayed firearms and robbed victims of valuables. The same DOJ release said he was on home confinement from his earlier federal conviction when the alleged incident happened. Pooh Shiesty has pleaded not guilty. That has to be said clearly. An allegation is not a conviction. A complaint is not a verdict. A viral headline is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But the stakes are real. AP reported that a federal judge ordered him to remain in custody until trial, with the judge pointing to the weight of the evidence, his criminal history, and an alleged violation of home confinement. His attorney pushed back, questioning the strength and timing of the FBI's case. That is the fight now. Prosecutors saying the evidence is strong, the defense saying the case is not as solid as it looks, and the public watching another rapper's future get tested in federal court. The next date that matters is the 6th of July 2026. That is when CBS Texas reported Pooh Shiesty is scheduled to stand trial in Dallas federal court. The final pretrial conference is scheduled for July 1. So, forget the fake certainty, forget the overconfident internet theories. The real question is sharper. Did Pooh Shiesty throw away his second chance, or is the government building a case that still has holes? That is what the courtroom has to answer. And, until that answer comes, Pooh Shiesty's story remains suspended between two versions of America's rap machine. In one version, he is the Memphis star who was finally supposed to come home, restart the music, and prove his career was bigger than his prison sentence. In the other version, he is a defendant accused of turning a business dispute into a federal kidnapping and robbery case. Either way, the ending is not written by the blogs anymore. It is being written in motions, hearings, evidence lists, bond decisions, and trial dates. That is why the next chapter matters. Because for Pooh Shiesty, this is no longer just about image. It is no longer just about music. It is no longer just about who is loyal, who switched sides, or who controls the contract. It is about freedom. And when July comes, the whole industry will be watching to see whether Pooh Shiesty gets another chance at a comeback, or whether the comeback becomes the case that changes his life forever.